This is Britt from Riley B Graphics. I've made this tutorial to show you how I use the graffiti backdrops. So this background is 6,000 by 4,500 pixels, which is large, but it's the size of the backdrop, which is the same as 20 by 15 inches. But you can obviously make it as big or small as you like. So in this first example, I've got somebody whose body is cropped off. You could have her standing just like that. This is assuming that you've already cleaned the background, removed the background off your subject. She could be standing like that with the floor behind her. Or if you want to, you could just use it as a wall. So select the graffiti layer, Command T to transform. And then just drag the floor out of the frame. I'm going to get rid of that dark part and shift it so that it's a bit more colorful, like that. And then depending how far behind her the wall is, you'd want to blur it a little bit, unless she was like right up against it. So to blur it, select the backdrop layer, go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. So that's 0, that's how we started. You could go right up to that, which looks daft. I would put it down at about just a softer blur, maybe around about 4. So okay. And then to put a shadow behind her, if you want one, you would go to the layer that she's on. On the right hand side somewhere here, just double click and you'll get the styles box. Click on the drop shadow, and depending on what your settings are on, they might all be on 0. I'm going to put them down so that you can see and push the opacity right up and move the distance so you can see what the shadow is doing here. It's a pitch black, very harsh shadow. And you can see in this box where it is. If we turn the dial by dragging, it moves it to the other side or wherever you want it. So I'm going to put it back where it was. And then I'm going to put the shadow, I think that position is fine, but we need it a lot softer. So we're going to adjust the size. And the spread just spreads out like that from the center. I'm going to leave it how it was, and then we're going to turn the opacity right down. That's 0, and then maybe put it to about 32%. I don't like this line in the background behind her face here, so I just want to shift, Command T. I just want to move this over a little bit to the left so that it hides behind her face. Okay. So you could leave it like that. I think that looks fine. Or say you wanted her to be closer to the wall, then you would have another harder shadow around her. If you want to put 2 shadows behind her, you could separate them. So on this layer, you would right click on this drop shadow word and go down to create layer, and what that's going to do is separate the shadow. Just say OK here. It's going to separate the shadow from the girl. So you'll see if I turn off the eye here, it switches it off completely, and it's now on its own layer, so you can transform and do what you like. So Command T, you could move it around. You can change the fill, make it darker if you want to. I'm going to make it softer. And then say you want to put a darker shadow closer to her, which makes it look like she's closer to the wall. We'll repeat the whole process. So on our graffiti girl, we're going to double click. We're going to go to drop shadow. It's got our old settings here, so I'm going to make the distance a bit closer to her and the size. You see now it's making a hard line. I'm going to make it a bit darker, and we're going to soften it a little bit. Put it a little bit closer to her. Soften a little bit more. So okay. So now, actually let me zoom in a little bit. So now we can see if I switch off that, that's before, that's after. I think I prefer her without it, so I'm going to leave it off, but you can, and then you could also separate that shadow the same way that we did this one and let them all work independently of each other. So that's a basic drop shadow. I'm going to just get rid of all of that. Okay, and this next one, this is image number 4. This boy is sitting, so he obviously has to be on the floor area. I'm going to make him bigger. Make sure that he's right down there. Okay. We're going to place him. We're going to blur the background a little bit. So we're going to go filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Well, I think around about where it was with the girl is fine, around about 4, so okay. Now in this example, we're just going to paint a simple shadow in a few different layers. So we need to make a blank layer, so we're going to go down here and click the plus sign. Then we're going to drag this one and make sure it's behind the boy, but on top of the floor. Okay, so in between the two, we're going to take a paintbrush with black paint. We're going to make sure it's soft, and we're going to make a brush a little bit bigger. You can click your square bracket key, and then we're just going to paint a soft shadow sort of underneath him like this. And then we're going to set that layer to multiply, and we're going to turn the opacity right down so that it's a really soft shadow. So about 40%. Then we're going to build it up slowly. So we're going to put another layer on top of that to make the brush maybe a little bit smaller. We're going to do it sort of under his knee here, underneath his shoes, and then we're going to set that to multiply and turn the opacity right down again. Okay, so if I turn them both off, that's with the first layer, that's with the second layer. I think it's maybe a little bit dark, we can turn it down. Then we're going to do another layer, and we're going to make the brush a little bit smaller, and this is going to be quite a dark one, so we're going to do it where he would be touching the floor, so underneath his leg here, under his foot, and maybe just in this space over here. We're going to set that to multiply and turn that down. So let's see, let's turn it up a little bit. I don't want to make the whole thing too dark. Okay, I think it might be a little bit dark. I'm going to turn that down, turn each of them down just a little bit. And turn the top one up. So you can just play around with it like that. And that's just how you can just paint your own simple shadow. If you've got any questions, please just let me know. I'm always happy to help. Thanks for watching. Bye.